What up, world? You already know what time it is. Boy, my name is Lost with the Mom. No need to brag no more. Something in the close to the real. Oh, the way. In the middle. In the real way. Always play as a play. I'm following this great game that we have here. Let me tell y'all. The shit that I got for you right now makes you really think. Dang. The world we're living in is some bullshit. If you don't understand that, then I'm not, you'll never understand what really will. You know? There's a shooting happened in my city today. In my zone, just all camouflage. Call the police. And when the police arrived, the police started shooting. People going crazy and all that. Stuff like that. The weather's been bad the last couple of days. I see why, you know? Certain things happen. People don't really realize how much it takes to try to rationalize the whole situation. Yeah, man. It was a dirty, very bad, but I could see them kill the police officer. And I body was trying to cross fire. So it happened in a Jewish neighborhood in my city. RIP to all the victims. And educate at least police trained in the right capacity. I mean, we've seen videos of what's happening. And it's quite compelling. Yeah, for me. Not better trained police. Three people are dead. And the situation has to be real critical in terms of situational response. So check this out. Listen.
To see what has happened is beyond shocking. It's a family environment, and to see what happened today is just unimaginable.
It's a very, very sad day. It's a nightmare, and but we have to be solid.
Horrifying, tragic scenes in Montreal's Côte de Neige district. Three people are dead, a police officer, a civilian, and the suspected shooter. It is the first killing of a police officer in the city in 24 years. The shelter in place is now over, but the city remains on edge. It all started at about 11:30 this morning when shots rang out outside a hotel on DeCary Boulevard. A threat alert was issued by Montreal police. Now, you may have received it on your telephone, urging people to shelter inside and to lock their doors because of an armed and dangerous suspect. Sharon Yonan Reynolds is on the scene tonight, and Sharon, the lockdown is now lifted. Describe for us, what do you see around you now? So, Deborah, this is actually the closest I have been able to get to the scene all day. When we first arrived, police were much more strict about keeping us further away, but throughout the day, that has alleviated a little. Dick Harry Boulevard is slowly opening up, with, of course, the exception of the scene directly close to where the shooting took place. You can kind of see down DeCary Boulevard across the street, quite a number of police vehicles remain on the scene, and you can see the hotel right there where police officers were called.
this morning. So we know that this entire area, of course, had been on lockdown earlier today. You mentioned that alert that everybody got, people told to stay inside or stay away completely from the area. And a few hours later, we did get the update that this alert has been canceled. The police investigation is still very much ongoing, and the area around the scene still remains cordoned off.
All right, Sharon, can you take us back to this morning and just walk us through the events of the day?
Yeah, so we know 3 people have been killed in this shooting, 1 officer, 1 civilian, and the suspected shooters. Officers were called to that hotel on DeCary Boulevard. Witnesses had said that they saw a gun sticking out of the window, and they heard shots fired. Police say that the officers were fired upon immediately when they arrived, and that's when the suspect was killed. We've also learned from our colleagues at Hadouken that the shooter did leave behind a manifesto filled with incel and anti-woman language. We do hope to get more information on this from police. But Police Chief Adi Daguerre did speak to the media about the officer who was killed. Here's a little bit of what he had to say about him.
He was a great police officer. A lot of credibility, and he was so passionate. Again, it's a tragic moment. It's a real nightmare. And knowing that you get engaged in the police to protect and serve and get killed, well, it's a dramatic moment for me as a chief, for my troops.
Now, Deborah Daguerre does say that this is the first time in about 2 decades that an SPVM officer was killed in the line of duty.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much, Sharon. And of course, we do know also that a female officer was injured in this. She was shot. She did survive, however, and she is in serious condition, however. So the emergency is now over, but people in the area are now trying to make sense of what happened. Gloria Henriquez joins us from DeCary Square, and you've been talking to people there. What are people telling you?
Deborah, people are definitely still in shock. You can see right behind me, the area around the place has been cordoned off, so access has been cut off, and people have been scrambling for hours trying to get back to their cars that are parked on the other side, to their hotels where they're staying right here, and even back to their homes. Now, it was even worse for those who were inside the complex where it all happened. We spoke to a man who describes everything as something unimaginable to happen in this family area. He said he first heard gunshots, and then he approached the window to see what was happening, only to see a lot of people scrambling.
The complex has a park in the middle that stretches the entire length. I saw parents ripping their kids off of the play structure. They were running for their life. It was very clear to me that there was something serious going on there. And then shortly after, the police presence just swarmed, and it didn't stop swarming for half an hour. And it's just been chaotic ever since. It's a ghost town outside, except for the police.
Yeah, and that was in the area of the hotel in Gloria. The dramatic moments weren't contained to just one area, just around the corner at a grocery store. There were some really terrifying and frustrating moments for customers and staff.
Yes, Deborah, people I spoke to not too long ago were just coming out of the grocery store where they had been sheltering in place since 11:30 in the morning, where everything happened. A man and his wife told me that he, along with 30 other people, had been there waiting until they got a go from police to get out, and he finally managed to get out of there not too long ago. We also spoke to the owner of the store, who described a chaotic scene.
So they broke through our entrance doors to our grocery store. And soon after, they made an entrance, about 6 or 7 police officers. There was a canine dog, and they ordered all the customers and staff to get on the ground to make sure everyone was safe.
So, Deborah, definitely a very difficult day for people who are here in the area. Back to you.
Gloria, thank you very much. Quebec Premier Christine Frechette just spoke at a news conference along with the Mayor of Montreal and other officials. Steve Rukavina has been monitoring the reaction from political leaders. Steve, what did they have to say?
Well, Premier Frechette called this a tragic incident. She offered condolences to everyone who lost their lives. She praised the police and the first responders for their quick response and also for their courage. Frechette was supposed to be at another news conference this afternoon, but she traveled to Montreal, started a crisis management group. She said that Quebec and Montreal are in mourning and that provincial flags and flags in the city will fly at half-mast.
These acts are reprehensible and have no place in our society. In the face of this ordeal, we will remain united, supportive, and determined to stand by all those affected.
And Frechette says that the government is collaborating with the city and police forces in the investigation. Right now, it's the police watchdog that is investigating, the BEI, but another police force may be called in. The deputy premier, who was also at that news conference, Yann Lafreniere, asked people to try to tune out rumors and let investigators do their work.
It was just very terrifying.
Pretty rough, very disturbed because of what happened there.
Mohamed Lamine Ben Redouane killed in the line of duty during a Montreal shooting on Monday. The 34-year-old joined the SPVM in 2021, and they say his passing is a great loss for the police force. His sense of duty, dedication, and professionalism will forever be remembered, they added. The Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs confirmed that Michael Moshe Mizrahi was the civilian killed. In a social media post writing that he was a beloved member of Montreal's Jewish community and an innocent victim of today's events.
Unfortunately, because there were police officers and civilians that were fatally shot. So anyone who comes into the neighborhood has to identify themselves to make sure that they live in the neighborhood before they're allowed over the police tape line.
People were finally allowed back outside around 3:30 Monday afternoon after having to shelter in place. A shooting in Montreal left 3 people dead, including a police officer and a civilian, and sparked a major police operation in Côte-des-Neiges. Residents described the situation that was difficult to comprehend as it unfolded. The perimeter was set just 1 block away from a grocery store where customers were locked down on Monday.
Crazy, there's a video I want to show you. One of the videos is really simple stuff. You saw 2 shooters. Yeah, somebody get away? I don't know.
White dude, old dude, with a camouflage, with a shotgun on the hand. So that's very scary.
What did you think of that moment?
All I think about is running.
Montreal police have not released many details about the suspect. We do not yet know his identity, nor are there any possible motives at this time. But they did confirm that the suspect was indeed wearing camouflage and had a long gun. Now, in addition to updating the media on the situation, Fadi Nagam said that he had met that officer who was killed at least twice before. He described him as an upstanding member of the Montreal police. He also had to deliver the news to the officer's brother that he had been killed. He also had a message of solidarity for Montreal police.
It's a very, very sad day. It's a nightmare. But we have to be solid. We have to be solid for our lady.
Yeah, man. So that's what he videos. Yeah. But there's 2 people. There's 2 people. And you got a crime. And the video clearly shows that the police officer panicked and shot the civilian. It's not easy. It's not easy going through this thing. You gotta know that. When you
Before it becomes too big. But even after all your attempts, before it becomes too big. But even after all your attempts, now they have got a lot bigger.
So have threats. He was slapped at a recent rally, and his family home is under police protection.
so
The
that
Communist Party has seized on a scandal in
you
education.
got nothing to do with
So
one thing.
million students trying to get into med school have to rewrite the
So they tell them, no, it's hard to believe that this one person carried out that shooting. He shot up the police officer. There was an intel group from what, Alberta?
Within 10 seconds, that was against the
No, I'm really close to this shit. And this time it looks like the same thing as it does. Ugly. You just keep it all the way 100. There's such thing as law of cause and effect. Shit been going real dirty. What?
Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have here today. A police officer, a civilian, and a suspect killed.
I saw the cop just drop her gun in protection and everybody putting vests on and running around.
Witness accounts of the chaos and the frightening message to Montrealers.
What started off as a report of an assault ended as a potentially life-changing call for two of our officers.
Plus, Saskatchewan police also hit by bullets. Their condition after a routine call erupted into gunfire.
This is crazy. Year after year, it's absolutely frustrating.
Also ahead, checking out rising prices, the everyday essentials costing you more.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
A chaotic scene in Montreal today after a call for shots fired ended with a police officer, a civilian, and the suspect all dead. It happened in Montreal's Côte-des-Neiges neighborhood. Now, a second police officer was left in critical condition. A neighborhood in lockdown as gunshots rang out. Witnesses reported hearing around a dozen gunshots. Online video shows armed police officers surrounding the door of a grocery store before smashing through the glass. An emergency alert went out just after midday, warning of an armed and dangerous suspect. People in the area were told to shelter inside, lock their doors, and stay away from windows.
CTV's Bureau Chief Geneviève Boschman is close to the area in Côte des Neiges where the mass shootings took place. And Geneviève, a frightening situation for police and for residents. So walk us through what happened today.
Absolutely, Sandy. These were terrifying moments that have launched a massive investigation here. The chain of events began at about 11:35 this morning with a 911 call that went out to police. Apparently, someone had seen the barrel of a gun protruding from an office building, and so police responded to that call. There was an exchange of gunfire and really just led to all these events here. I spoke to one witness, John Alexander, who was actually in the grocery store just a minute before. He walked out of the grocery store and then he started to hear those gunshots and the exchange that happened. Here's what he had to say.
The active shooter was like in front of me.
You saw him?
Yes, I saw him. He was a white dude, old dude, with a camouflage, with a shotgun on the hand. So that's very scary.
Scary, Geneviève, and it went on for hours. The operation, the police chief said, is over, but he was very emotional when he spoke to the public. Did he indicate a motive?
He was absolutely very emotional. He did not talk about a motive. We did hear from that witness, as you said, that he was wearing camouflage. The suspect was wearing camouflage. That is something that the police chief said was so. But then he said this was just the beginning.
Chief said he spoke to the family of the young officer who was killed, to his brother, and that this was devastating times and that the police will get to the bottom of what happened here. Sandy.
Right, CTV Geneviève Boschman in Montreal. Now, this was not the only police shooting today, with an increased police presence now in Melville, Saskatchewan, after bullets were fired at two RCMP.
Okay, they scrubbed that. They scrubbed that video from the internet because they interviewed somebody that was in an apartment right across the street. They said there was two gunmen. If he's saying there was two gunmen and he was right across the street, he had a bit of vantage point than someone that would be up close and personal, in my opinion. So that shit's crazy. That shit's crazy.
Carmelo Anthony. Yes, sir. Do you think he got a fat trial, Carmelo Anthony? First, deal with the grand jury. Him being charged with murder was a crime in and of itself. Austin fell onto Carmelo's knife trying to.
He needs to stop. He needs to stop. He needs to stop.
Died. Would you want Austin to get life? Would Dr. Umar Johnson be using his platform to say that little boy should get life for what he done that night? Can Dr. Umar acquit a white boy of murder and self-defense? And I personally believe the reason Toby was put on Carmelo's defense was to feed the strategy to the prosecutor. If you notice, Daddy Metcalf never forgave Carmelo Anthony for what happened to his son. But let that have been a black mother or a black father, they would have forgave him the minute they got the phone call. Killer is on trial for his life. You were there when that man took your twin brother's life. How under heaven do you not take the stand in your brother's life? Right. Hunter, is it not true that you started this? Hunter, is it not true that you and your brother jumped Carmelo? Hunter, is it not true that it was four of you and not just your brother? Because you and your brother was guilty. Rest in peace to the deceased. The lawyer, Mike Howard, in my opinion, respectfully and allegedly, he set Carmelo up for this legal execution. Because if Carmelo walks, you basically said black people can defend their life, which is something we've never been able to do. Him having a knife, boom, These white people fight for the right to carry a gun out the house every day. Did you leave your house with the intent to take a life?
Yeah, Dr. Umar is a little bit candid. Let me tell y'all. To say they fell onto the knife is wild. I don't know, man. The nigga's wild for saying that. But y'all seen the Tony Mangione case? The Luigi Mangione case? Well, it turns out that he might get off because he's trying to put the insurance companies on trial, you know? And the insurance companies ain't having it. They're like, yo, screw Luigi Mangione. So they don't want to go and testify about anything, which would give him some type of legal loophole that they found, his lawyer found. He must have a good lawyer. But anyway, so now Luigi Mangione is going to get charged of manslaughter. Now I know y'all might be like, yo, yeah, you talking is crazy. But no, when he did this, he really thought this shit through. And it's diabolical.
But they're gonna. All right, so all right, so let me give y'all a good one. I ain't trying to talk y'all ears off. And check this out. Real quick, real quick. Shout out to Jesse Weber Live.
So, you remember when we told you last night that accused United Healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione was preparing the extreme emotional disturbance defense? Well, today, a stunning reversal. His team seemingly withdrawing the psychiatric defense. I mean, that's quick. Why? I have theories. I have thoughts. I'm bringing on a claim criminal defense attorney, Joe Tacopina, in a little bit to talk about it, get his perspective. He has experience in this area. Also tonight, I'm going to be talking with one of Beverly Hills' top plastic surgeons, Dr. Terry Dubrow. If you are a fan of botch, you know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm talking to him about an apparent unexpected side effect that's happening to people using GLP-1s for weight loss. It's called ghost fat. Yeah, we're going to tell you all about it, why Hollywood beauty standards, societal standards, maybe are changing. Later on, two words that seems everyone has an opinion about. Cancel culture. But when a celebrity is canceled, Do they deserve a second chance? Got a great panel going to give their hot take on the latest headlines that include Kevin Spacey, Lil Nas X, Army Hammer, and of course, we got to make sense of the latest on the Iran deal, how the administration is responding to the criticism surrounding that deal. Well, we're starting with.
I ain't trying to hear all this. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. There you go.
What they're going to say is Luigi cared so much about corporate greed.
Shout out to TMZ.
Brian Thompson, because he was parroting what people are saying in America, which is, we believe that insurance companies are killing people. Mark, there is a chance that on December 31st, 2031, Luigi Mangioni could be a free man celebrating New Year's. And I find this absolutely shocking. But I'll tell you something. This defense that, even though they've withdrawn it now, that they are going to raise again this defense of extreme emotional disturbance in the murder trial involving the killing of Brian Thompson, I think it could work based on things that we're hearing here at TMZ about the feeling that this is the pound of flesh that a lot of people want as a result of what has happened with healthcare in America.
Well, clearly, this guy has a constituency, and that's the most important thing when you're trying a jury trial, a criminal jury trial, is do you have a demographic? Do you have a constituency that is going to listen to you, that's going to give you a presumption, or that is going to follow along with what you say? What you're talking about is in September of last year, the defense gave notice under seal of under a code section in New York of extreme emotional disturbance, EED.
So this has been going on for almost a year that they've had this idea. Wow. Let's just get into what this defense is, which is essentially, I mean, the idea of extreme, what it does is, if you can get a jury to believe that you were kind of out of your head when you did what you did, and it was reasonable, that a murder case becomes a manslaughter case. And a manslaughter case in New York is, 5 to 25 years in prison, but there's a minimum of only 5 years. And so it's a huge difference between that and life in prison for murder. So what they're going to say is that Luigi cared so much about corporate greed and fought so hard to counter it, that he was contacting authors all over the world about corporate greed. He would talk to anybody about it. He seemed off the last year because of his feelings about it. And they're going to try and show that he killed Brian Thompson because Brian Thompson was the symbol of corporate greed. And in his head, even though it was twisted, he was parroting what people are saying in America, which is, we believe that insurance companies are killing people.
Well, there's probably, next to child predators, the most reviled people in a courtroom are insurance companies. You can't go 1 degree of separation until you try a jury trial and see what people do with insurance companies. And in this case, one of the things, as a practical matter, they have this in the state case. They've got, under New York state law, you can allege extreme emotional disturbance. We don't have that in federal.
True. So why did they withdraw it? Why did they withdraw? I think I know, but I want to hear what you have to say. Why did they withdraw this defense at the end of this week? Why?
Because when they went to court this week, the judge, if you read the transcript, says, I'm going to unseal a lot of stuff. I want to see the redactions, meaning when I unseal stuff, you're going to black out things you don't want revealed. And he specifically quoted the code section 210 or whatever it is, that is extreme emotional disturbance. It became apparent when that happened that, hey, we've got a problem here. If we do that and he puts this stuff and seals this stuff, the feds can then use it. And remember, there's the specter of the federal prosecution. And to do an extreme emotional disturbance basically presupposes you did the crime.
Of course, but my understanding is this is a little bit different, and I'll tell you why. That we looked at the court file, and Friday, the day we're talking right now, Friday was the deadline for the defense to turn over all the psychiatric records of Luigi Mangioni to prosecutors, that the judge ordered this date to be the date they turn it over. And what I think is it's more than coincidental that they suddenly drop this defense, because I think what they're doing is strategically, they don't want to give prosecutors this amount of time, since the trial isn't until September, to go over the documents, and then they have a right to get their own psychiatrist, the state does, and then evaluate Luigi. And Luigi's going to have to sit with the prosecutor's psychiatrists, and I don't think defense wants to give them this kind of lead time to do it. That's what I think is going on.
Well, I'm not going to disabuse you of that, but if they did it later on, it's an interesting issue. If they waited till end of July or August, would the judge allow them to do it then, or would it end up continuing the trial? And part of what you've got is with people like this. Remember, Ted Kaczynski, you remember the Unabomber. The Unabomber was highly intelligent, had screeds that he wrote about. And in his case, his defense lawyers basically tried to show that he had mental issues and ended up working out a non-death penalty case, resolution to the case. And he forever did not approve of what his lawyer did, that they got me in a weak moment, blah, blah, blah. When you've got a client, you're talking about the client's mental state. It is a very difficult thing, both for the defense and for the judge, because if you were to say, Judge, we're withdrawing it, you could say that. And the judge says, why? You could say it's tactical. The judge says, well, I need more than that. Because if you later.
They say we're not done evaluating him and we want to make sure we have our ducks in a row.
Right, but the judge may put their feet to the fire and say, no, you can't just do this at the last minute. You have to make that decision so that the prosecution has time. I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where the judge says, you can do it once you've said you've invoked this code section. I'm gonna say that you don't, the prosecution doesn't have time. I just don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, but you know what? The defense is going to say, look, we're entitled to a fair trial. We are not ready yet because it's complicated. We need more psychiatric evaluation. And we don't want to commit to this. We know, because if we do commit to it, we're admitting to the murder. And you can't force us to make that kind of choice, that either you admit to the murder or you get a valid defense. So I could see the judge being boxed in here, because the last thing the judge wants to do is to say, yeah, either admit to the murder or pick a defense, but you can't have both. That is going to get reversed in appeal.
Well, except I think you've got this, you can't look at this in a vacuum as the state court case. The fact that the state is going first, I think, has to come into the calculation. There is no extreme emotional disturbance in the federal law.
Right.
So if this gets unveiled, if it gets basically put out there, and you've turned over all of these items, the feds can then use it against you or against him in their prosecution. So you can win the battle in the state court and lose the war in federal.
I get it, but the defense knew that a year ago, almost a year ago, when they decided they were going to mount this defense. So, you know,
a year ago, they didn't know that the state was going first.
Yeah, but they knew it was a 50-50 chance. They didn't know that the
That
Fed
was exactly right. It is a
So are you saying that they're gonna do this forever now? Because look, if they, look, well, I want to get into how effective this defense would be, but are you suggesting that if they drop the defense, they have any other defense in this case? Because Luigi did it.
Well, look, he did not suppress, the judge, did not suppress the gun, did not suppress the note.
And there's video. I mean, Mark, he did it. So, I mean, look, I'm sorry for prejudging, but even the defense was raising this for a year. So it's very little doubt that Luigi is the one who pulled the trigger on Brian Thompson. So if he, if they don't do that defense, what do they have left?
Well, I could conceivably come up with something.
Give it to me.
Well, it may be one of those easy cases where the defendant takes the stand.
Okay, and did you kill Brian Thompson? And he says,
yes, but.
But the yes, but is the psychiatric defense.
Well, not necessarily. You can say yes, but.
Yeah, finish a sentence. Yes, but.
Yes, but I did have the mens rea. I was so overtaken. I did this, that, or the other thing.
That's the emotional disturbance defense.
If you're invoking that code section, if you pick a jury and you think that you've got some jurors, it's rare that it happens that there are defense stealth jurors, but this may be the one case where you have defense stealth jurors. You've seen the people outside.
Absolutely. But believe me, we're doing like TMZ Live. Everybody who Skypes in, all the viewers are saying, we support Luigi. What the insurance companies do every day is murder. Brian Thompson committed murder. So they are bending over backwards to justify it in some way. And in this case, it gives the jury a middle ground, that the jury doesn't have to say it's all or nothing. It's either guilty or not guilty. They'll say, look, he shouldn't have done it, but we get why he did. So we're going to call it manslaughter. And it's more palatable, I think, to a lot of jurors if you have that emotional disturbance defense than saying, guys, you got to either say he's guilty or not guilty. Either he send him to prison for all
that comes down to jury instructions, the charging conference.
Comes down to selection.
Selection is everything. In all cases, it's over after selection. If there are some of these Luigi fans, people who are supportive, and by the way, these are not one-offs. There is a large number of people who support him. It's incredible. And if they get onto a jury, if they do, sometimes what I claim prosecutorial jurors do, which is they say, oh yeah, I could be fair, and then get back in the jury box. And as soon as they go to deliberations, they say, we're going to convict this guy, blah, 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 take him out back in the day. What if it's the opposite? They say, yeah. And say Luigi gets on the stand. Say he testifies to something along those lines. By the way, judge is going to have a very difficult time excluding anything he testifies to, because you've got that kind of base constitutional right. It's the one right that a lawyer can't overrule. He starts saying, bro, this guy was killing people. They had just entered into an agreement where they admitted that they were without any basis, they were cutting off medical care to people. It was a constant drip of people being killed and not supported and being bankrupted. If I didn't kill him, this guy was going to kill others. How's a judge going to stop him from saying that?
I'll go one further. I'll go 1 point further, because you have to show it's reasonable. So Luigi makes that argument, and then the defense calls to the stand Sophie Jones. They call Sophie Jones to see if what Luigi said is accurate. So, Miss Jones, your husband was suffering from a certain type of cancer, and the insurance company would not approve the medicine that your husband needed. What happened, Miss Jones? He died a horrible, painful death. You put United Healthcare on trial to buttress what Luigi is saying to show it's reasonable. And this is the O.J. Simpson put Mark Furman on trial defense, where they're saying, yeah, he did this, but look at what United Healthcare did. And I know this sounds crazy, but I could see Luigi testifying and then calling witnesses whose loved ones either died, or maybe people who are suffering right now get on the stand to show Luigi's not lying.
I don't think that's beyond the scope. 20 years ago, I represented the Sarkeesian family. Their daughter was denied a transplant 20 years ago by Cigna. And to the point where the family organized in Glendale, California, a protest. And that protest was against Cigna. Finally, Cigna couldn't take it anymore. They reversed course, gave her the transplant. But at that point, Natalie died because she did not get it timely. It's heartbreaking. People have virtually everybody I know has a story like that, where an insurance company has let somebody die that they know 1 or 2 degrees of separation. I know that it drives people crazy.
And you put United Healthcare on trial. And it's sort of like, yeah, what Luigi did is bad, but look at the scope of what these insurance companies are doing. And I could see them, finding that manslaughter middle ground. And the other thing is, in the jury room, you're going to have people talking about their own stories, whether they should or should not, because everybody knows somebody who went through something like this where the insurance company wouldn't approve it. And probably a lot of people themselves have had that problem. So in the jury room, you're going to have people who are going to be taking up a cause in a way, and that could just sweep the whole jury, into buying the defense.
Well, to my point, I suppose, if you ask any 12 people, the next 12 people you meet, have you ever had or heard of a story of somebody who died because the insurance company wouldn't come through, somebody who was bankrupted, somebody who lost everything they worked for 40 years, somebody who just died an awful death due to cancer because they couldn't afford some life-saving drug, or the insurance company just stalled them until they died? It's virtually impossible.
Right.
You get 12 New Yorkers in a room who two of them, basically 1/6, don't have 1 degree of separation to one of those stories.
That's right. So, if the jury comes back, look, the judge has a lot of latitude, and it really depends on, the judge's sentiments. But, the judge could go as high as 25 years and by the way, this is not a defense that Mangioni would have to show beyond a reasonable doubt. All they have to show is it's more likely than not that he suffered from this disturbance. If they can just show 51 to 49% that he suffered from that emotional disturbance, and that's what caused him to do it, and it was reasonable, it's manslaughter.
Right. And one of the interesting things, if it's true, I don't have any inside information, but if it's true that the reason they withdrew what they stated in the court under seal in September of last year was because the judge was going to unseal it, and that's what he said in the transcript. And they did not want to be hung on the federal case because they're being forced to go through it first in the state. It's an interesting situation, because if they don't basically reassert the extreme emotional disturbance, but they just have to get up and testify, and he just says, this is why I did it, whatever else, and that jury hangs and does not convict him, they've now got his testimony to use against him in the federal court. And in the federal court, it's a lot tougher to get a mental defense of any kind.
I don't understand, because either way, whether the defense, look, here's the problem with what you're saying, that if he just gets up on the stand and says it, and they don't assert that defense,
he still admitted that he did it.
He had two things. A, he admitted he did it, and B, the jury isn't getting a specific instruction about reducing the charge. So there's no benefit in him just getting up and saying it. What you want to do is get the judge to approve the defense and then put manslaughter on the table so that the jury has choices. But the way you're saying it, they wouldn't have choices.
Depending on what the jury instructions look at. If you say, or if he testifies, for instance, you've got a jury instruction that talks about premeditation, deliberation, that I didn't, and he gets up and he says, I didn't deliberate. I mean, I did, but at one point I rethought of it, or I rethought the going through it, but then I thought, and my mind was clouded by the fact that this guy has destroyed so many lives, and I just snapped at that point. Arguably, under the jury instructions, if the judge gives one that mitigates malice, you can potentially get an instruction of manslaughter. I think that's highly unlikely. I think what would end up happening if he testified is that one or two people would say, I'm not going to ever convict him.
Okay, maybe so, but that's just a hung jury. What if you could get a manslaughter conviction?
Oh, if you could get a manslaughter, the problem is, I keep going back to what trick pony when it comes to defense. If you get a manslaughter and it's based on the fact that you've had some mitigation, but you've admitted you did it, and you don't have that mitigation or the ability to use that mitigation in the federal, you win the battle, lose the war.
And I agree with you, and I want to get into that, but the fact is, what you're suggesting, same thing. If he gets on the stand and just says it, it's exactly the same thing. He's admitted it on the stand either way.
Yes, he has, unless there's a way that he can thread the needle in terms of how he.
Or you don't call him to the stand, you call the psychiatrist to the stand, and then you start calling witnesses who suffered from United Healthcare.
Well, that's really kind of interesting. Would a judge allow you to put on witnesses who had told, let's hypothetically say,
right,
there are witnesses who he had talked to. You've got familiarity with the evidence. You've seen some of this stuff. Are there witnesses or are there instances in his journal and other spots where, be careful what you wish for, prosecution, he's going to be able to point to those instances and say, look, he was driven mad, so to speak, by some of the actions of United Healthcare. Those journals could be, the prosecution wants them. They fought mightily to get them. But what if in the journals there is something that the defense can use to at least tell their story? And then the judge, under the basic law of, if you get in part of this, you've got to let in the whole. In California, it'd be 352 and 356. But under that theory, if there's something in that journal or more than something, and you can tell a story through that journal, the prosecution may regret the fact that they didn't let the judge suppress it.
Okay, so here's what I know, that his thing was not specifically healthcare. It was corporate greed. Healthcare is a part of that, but his thing was bigger. It was about corporate greed. And there's nothing that I've heard, and we did a documentary on this, spent a lot of time on it. Nothing I've heard.
What did you do the documentary
on Luigi, on exactly this.
Right, and what did you, when you say corporate greed?
There's a guy, for example, who wrote a book on corporate greed. Luigi hunted this guy down and ordered a whole bunch of books, like 200 books, I think, just to elevate him on bestseller list, and contacted him and critiqued the book. He was really into this concept of corporate greed and would talk to people about it. We talked to two guys who Luigi traveled with in Europe, two German guys. And he would talk to them about corporate greed, not insurance specifically. So, you know, I don't know that the Journal is going to get him that way, but if I was his lawyer, what I would do, I think, is I wouldn't call him to the stand for the very reason you said, that if he admits he did it on the stand,
Exactly.
if he admits that he did it when he's on the stand, then all of a sudden, you know, the federal case is over. He's guilty. But if you don't call him to the stand and you call a psychiatrist for the purpose of showing his state of mind, then you could theoretically, and this is really threading the needle, you could have the psychiatrist say he was in such an altered state that if he did kill him, he did it because he was kind of out of his head. So if you can get that word if in with the psychiatrists, and if you can bar the prosecution from forcing the psychiatrist to answer, did he ever say he did it? Then at least maybe you can get a manslaughter conviction in the state court and not basically admit to the crime when he's tried federally.
You know, that would be quite a sentence split in order to hit the fact that he doesn't testify,
right,
that he's not a psychiatrist, that a judge allows a psychiatrist without giving the prosecution the ability to have him examined and asked about whether he did it, which I don't think any judge is going to deny the prosecution that. So I come back.
But what if the psychiatrist, what if it's structured so the psychiatrist never asks the direct question?
I don't think that there is a way that if you put the psychiatric state of mind in play, that any judge is going to restrict what the psychiatrist, because the psychiatrist.
What if the psychiatrist never asked Luigi the specific question, did you pull the trigger? It's just, on this date, I want to get into your state of mind, Luigi. Number one, are you happy he's dead? Are you happy he was shot? What was your state of mind when he was shot? So you never have him make that, you never have the shrink actually.
I can see the defense doing that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No prosecution psych is going to do that, ever. The prosecution psych hasn't been born that's going to limit himself to asking a question that the prosecution.
Oh, no. The prosecution psychiatrist will ask the question, why can't Luigi assert his Miranda right at that point?
I don't think that he can once you put it in play, and that's precisely why I think, to some degree, not wholly, why.
I disagree with you on that. I don't see why. I can't, because it's arguing in the alternative. You say to the jury, we are pleading not guilty. But even if you believe he shot him, at the time this happened, this was his state of mind. That's the way you present the case. And that way, when it goes to federal trial, the feds can't say he ever confessed.
I don't think you'd ever get there.
You should have your daughter call me, because I got ideas. No, I'm serious. I think this works. I mean, I realize you're walking the tightrope here, but I don't think that Luigi ever has to say he did it. You just put him in that time frame and tell the jury, look, we are not admitting to anything, but if you believe he did it, this was his state of mind, and this is why he had a state of mind like this, buttressed by all these other witnesses who come up and testify how monstrous the insurance industry was to their family.
So does the person that he idolized and tried to pump up on the bestseller list, is that person in their book or their treatise, do they have some dissertation or point or thesis that would support what you're saying right now?
Well, I looked at God, you know, it's really funny. I have some connection to this author too. I'm trying to think of what it is. Either I taught him, he's a lawyer. I don't remember. Weirdly, I have a connection to the author and I talked to him. And he wouldn't fully open up on this, but the book is not specifically about healthcare. It's a much broader book about just the fact that corporations are destroying the fabric of America. And
by the way, for the last 10 years, there are those who would argue that the populist movement, whether it's Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, that's right, Nithya in LA, that the populist kind of democratic socialist movement has its roots in the inequality of wealth and the corporate, Bernie Sanders is making a compelling case against healthcare and putting profits over people.
But it's resonating now. It's resonating now. So, that's my theory, that you don't admit to it, but you make the jury say, you tell the jury, look, if you believe he did it, here's his state of mind. You preserve your rights for the federal case, and maybe you get a manslaughter conviction. Give me a better strategy.
No, I'm going to read the book and I'm going to read the journal. Is the journal out? Did you put it in your doc?
We interviewed, we showed that we wouldn't do an interview, but we did talk about the book at length in the documentary. Forward this on to your daughter. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, this is,
it's a very intriguing. I don't know that I'm all the way where you are, but I think I've now come around to I've always said he has a constituency or a demographic, and that to people who don't try to get that is 100% across the board ahead of where you normally are with an accused of somebody who is infamous, because normally you are demonized and you are made into the worst human on the planet. That clearly is not him.
And it doesn't hurt that he's good looking.
Oh no, it doesn't hurt at all. But that's a whole other episode.
Oh, I think it's a huge point. Well, it is another episode, but it's a huge point that you're looking at that guy in a sweater. Reminds me of the Menendez brothers in the first case. Looking at this guy in a sweat. By the way, he shouldn't wear a suit. He should wear a sweater the way the Menendez brothers did. I'm serious.
I disagree. I think he should either a sweater or a polo shirt.
And by the way, for people watching this or listening, I'm not making light of this. I mean,
we have so crossed the Rubicon on that.
No, I'm actually serious.
We're gonna have 1,000 comments about what.
I am not saying I approve of what Luigi Mangioni did, because I don't. Personally, I don't. I got another hat on, and I'm just thinking, if I were his lawyer, that's what I would do. That's what I'm saying. My personal view is different from what I would do as his lawyer. That's all I'm saying.
I got you. It's a fascinating legal that they find themselves in, and I'm fascinated by it. For people.
So you might get 10 years on the state side, but on the federal side, they're gonna give him life. So he might just walk free December 31st, 2031. Also, vigilante type shit. Never know, man. He looks like a super smart dude. He probably has it all detailed out. So we're gonna figure it out. See what might miss him. You know my slogan: keep it real in the field, forget how they feel. I'm out. Peace. The Middle East.